Hey, so by this time you might have already gone through a lot of stuff with respect to AI, with respect to generative AI, LLM, and so on. And you must have a great idea about what LLM is or what a generative AI application is. Now the question is, what is an AI agent? Now, a lot of people know it theoretically, might be using some agent like Claude, Codex, and so on. But the question is like, what is the difference between using ChatGPT and using Claude? What is the difference between using an LLM like GPT versus using an agent like Claude? Let's try to understand this. Now, if you see what we know about an LLM, let's write it. LLM stands for large language model. So it has been trained with a lot of data available in this internet, and it can answer. The biggest part of this LLM is it knows NLP, which stands for natural language processing. So it can understand. I won't say understand, but it can process. It can process. If I say something in English, it can process that. It can give me some relevant information according to whatever I ask, and whatever we ask, that thing we know, it is known as a prompt. So whatever we prompt, an LLM can answer to that question. Now, the biggest issue with LLM is they are undoubtedly they are smart. They can answer your question, but the problem is they have been trained with a lot of data at the time of training, right? So at the time of training, whatever data was available, let's suppose there's an LLM. If you think of GPT-5, right? When GPT-5 was trained, maybe in late 2025. Now GPT-5 can answer any of your question that happened before 2025. If you ask a question, let's suppose who won the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup in 2022, it would be able to answer the question. Now the biggest challenge is it doesn't have any information about anything that happened after that time, and that's the biggest limitation of an LLM. Now let me make you understand this with example rather than discussing it theoretically. So for example, here I would run a local model on my machine. So I have a local model called Gamma 4, which is developed by Google. So I am going to run it using my Docker model run Gamma 4 command. And you see that model is running. You can see it's asking me to send a message, and it's going to answer this. Let me try to send a message, right? So let me say, who own FIFA World Cup 2022, right? Now let's see. Argentina won the FIFA World Cup 2022. We all know about it. Now let me ask one more question. Who won IPL 2025? Let's ask this question and let's see what happens. Now you'll be able to see that it's analyzing, it's doing a lot of work, and let's have a look, right? So what's the answer we are getting, right? It's saying as of now the IPL 2025 season has not been played, so the winner has not been decided yet. Now you know that today it's May 2026, and it's saying that IPL 2025 is not been played yet. What's the reason behind it? Let's try to analyze the reason behind it. So let me ask one more question. Till what date you have the data? Now when I ask, right, you see my knowledge cutoff, you can see it here. My knowledge cutoff is January 2025. Therefore, I do not have information about events or anything after that. Now that is the problem with an LLM. LLM is smart. It has a lot of knowledge, but the only problem with LLM is it doesn't know anything apart from the training data it has. It has been trained with a lot of data. It can answer any question if you ask with respect to the trained data, right? So if I ask you, explain me Kubernetes, explain me Docker, it will give me a very nice answer. It can do these things because it can process my natural language. It can answer me with the data and so on. But this is also the limitation of LLM. Now, what if I feed it with context, with tools, with the ability to do stuff. And that's where agents comes in. So let's try to understand. Let me go there. So what I'm going to do, so by default, we have an LLM. So we are an agent. We'll also have an LLM, which will act as a brain of this agent, right? Now, apart from this, what else it will have? It will have another important thing it must have is tools. With the help of tools, it would be able to do stuff on behalf of me. Let's suppose if I ask this question, hey, who won IPL 2025? Because LLM doesn't have that data, but it can call a tool to search web on behalf of me. It will search the web and then it will give me the answer. Remember, when you ask this question, who won IPL 2025? Now, when you ask this question, what is my intention? What is the question? That my tool is not going to understand, because tool is a very straightforward thing. It is just a function, like you build some function, JavaScript function, Python function, Node.js function, whatever, right? You build some function. Those functions can take some input and return you some output. It doesn't have any, brain in it. So your AI agent with the power of LLM will understand the intent, what exactly you want to do. And we'll be having a lot of tools, maybe a search web. Search web is one of the tool. Similarly, I might have get weather, another tool, right? There could be even more tools, like I can build another tool to read files, right? Read files. I can have a lot of tools like this. So agent with the help of tools can do the work for me and gather the information. Those information it can feed to the LLM, because LLMs are very smart. They can answer. If they know stuff, if they get the context, they would be able to answer. So LLM is going to answer me those questions. One more thing an agent can have and must have is the memory. Now, I'm not talking about the memory. Memory is like whenever I'm talking to this agent. Now, every time I ask something, whatever I asked before, it doesn't have any context. So it has to store the chat information, the answer, whatever response it is giving. So it should have a clear idea, like our brain, like if I'm talking to you, I know whatever I have already discussed. What is an LLM? I have already discussed. I'm not going to discuss it once again. Like this, my agent also needs some memory to remember what has been already done and what exactly it needs to do next. So these are the things it has to remember, and that's why it needs a memory as well. So I'm not talking about the memory part right now. I'm talking about the LLM plus the combination of LLM and tools. So I have built a very simple application with this same model, with the Gamma model. Let's actually go there, right? So I have built a very simple small agent. Let me refresh it right now. So what I'm going to do first, let me ask it some question. What is the weather in Bangalore? Right? What is the weather in Bangalore? Right? So let's ask this question and let's see how it answers. Now you see, I've asked this question and it's thinking, LLM is thinking, and then let's see what happens. I do not have real-time access to current weather information. So I cannot, as simple as that, because it's using the LLM. It's using the LLM and LLM doesn't know. Now, whenever I give this, the same question, let me copy the question. Let me copy this question and I'm going to add this tool called get weather, and I'm going to right now ask the same question and let's see what is the response. This time I've given this tool access called get weather. Now you see that it is calling, right? So it is calling this get weather tool to answer me the question. And look at this, the current weather in Bangalore, India is partially cloudy with the temperature and humidity and all this information. You know this. Now we got, with the help of the tool, my agent is able to make use of both LLM, because LLM behind, now you might think, okay, what's the big deal? You can get the weather by, searching or by doing this. Yes, I can. But the thing is, you see, I asked this question in natural language. I didn't call a function wherein I've passed this value, nothing like this. I called it in a natural language, but my tool, which is getWeather, is just a simple function that takes an input as a city. Now, which city I'm asking from this text, from this sentence, it is the LLM which is finding out, okay, what is the name of the city here? From this, even if I ask this in any other way, still it will be able to find it out. Okay, I am asking about Bangalore, right? So even if I ask Bangalore's weather, can you tell me, like this, still it will be able to answer, because LLM is going to process the natural language, and then it knows which tool to call. From my prompt, it will understand, okay, I need to call the getWeather, right? So that's exactly what it will do. Now let's see some other question, right? Let's ask the same question that I asked: who own IPL 2025? Let's ask this question, and I'm not gonna give access to any tool. Let me see how LLM answered this question. Now, when I ask this question, who own IPL 2025? Now let's see what happens. Thinking, and it's saying, I do not have information about the winner of IPL 2005. So as the tournament has not yet been played. Now you see that now it's 2026 and it's saying that 2025 is not played. Now let me ask the same question. Let's copy this question and give it the tool called search web. Let me do this, and so it's going to use the search web tool, and let's see how it answers. Okay, you see, Royal Challengers Bangalore, RCB, our RCB won the IPL 2025, right? So that's the power it got with a tool that LLM otherwise wouldn't able to answer. Same way, let me ask another interesting question. Let's use another tool that I've created called Fetch URL. And I'm going to ask, get me some info about codewithramanuj.com. Fine, codewithramanuj.com. And let's see. Okay, I've given this access called Fetch URL, and it's going to use this Fetch URL tool right now, and it's going to give me some interesting information. Let's see what we get. This is my website, and let's see what exactly my LLM answer about my website. Okay, you see, CodeWith Ramanuj is a provider of software solution, developer training, and technical consulting. That's what I do. And you would be able to see that a lot of information, very interesting information, what are the technologies that I deal with, and a lot of information, interesting information. I would love, you can check my website and you will find a lot of valuable information there. But you see right now, this is what we can do with the help of an agent, which we can't do with LLM alone. So LLM is working as a brain of this, because when I ask a question, only LLM can understand it, because LLM has the power of natural language processing. It can understand, it can process, it can understand the intent of my question, and it can call the right tool. So LLM can direct my agent to call the right tool. And in some other example, I'll talk about the memory part as well. We'll implement some memory as well. Right now, my, this one is bit dumb. It doesn't have any memory, so that it doesn't know what was the last question that I asked. And if I continue ask another question with respect to the last question, it won't be able to answer, because it just takes a question. It doesn't, maintain any memory, and which is also a very important part of an agent. So I hope you got a very nice idea about the agent and LLM. What is the basic difference between an agent and LLM? I'm going to build a lot of interesting videos, and similarly, one more video that I'm going to build on MCP server. So today we got these tools. Now there are different types of tools, and to call these tools, there are different ways, right? If I'm using open APIs, if I am using Claude, if I am using different agent has different ways of calling this tool. There is no standard way. And to standardize it, we have something called MCP or MCP server, Model Context Protocol Server. So this is a very interesting thing, very interesting topic. We are going to make a video on that as well. Till then, Thank you so much for watching.